Have you ever been in a situation, maybe a high-stakes board meeting, or even just a difficult family dinner, where the script is absolutely perfect?
Mm.
Everyone is saying the right lines, the smiles are polite, the logic seems totally sound, but your stomach is just in knots, because
Mhm.
deep down the vibe is completely wrong.
It's that dissonance, right? When the audio doesn't match the video,
Yeah.
the polish is there, but the structure underneath is hollow.
Exactly. And usually we just ignore that feeling, we nod, we keep the peace. But if you have been feeling that specific glitch lately, that sense that the official story isn't matching up with reality, you are going to want to listen to this.
You really are.
Because we are looking at a week where that gap is about to be ripped wide open.
We're calling it Pivot Week.
Pivot week, it sounds a little corporate, I know, but I think it fits. We're doing a deep dive into the week of January 27th to February 1st, 2026. And to help us decode what is, frankly, a very intense set of data, we're doing something a little different with our sources today.
We are. So typically, we might just look at one type of analysis. But today, to get the full picture, we're synthesizing two very different sources. First up, we have the Astrology of the Week, forecast by Tarot by High C.
Which gives us the technical planetary weather report.
Exactly.
And that's heavy on its own. But the second source is what really pulled me in. It's a narrative piece called StoryScope, The Week the Age Tilted.
Mhm.
It's essentially a fictional parable, almost like a simulation, that's written specifically to illustrate the energy of this week. It centers on this character named Marilyn, who is a systems ethicist.
I have to say, just from an analytical perspective, systems ethicist is a fascinating job title.
Right.
It implies that your role isn't just to check if the system is working efficiently, but to check if the system is actually true.
And that's our mission today.
Ugh.
We're going to overlay these two sources, the technical astrology and that narrative simulation, to really understand why the headline for this week is Honesty is favoring polish and curiosity is favoring control.
It's a week where the clean, the polite narrative just breaks and something raw comes through.
So let's start with that, the atmosphere, the vibe check, if you will. The sources describe this week as a time where instincts interrupt logic at inconvenient moments. What's actually driving that?
Well, to get the glitch, we have to look at the backdrop. The astrological source reminds us we are deep in Aquarius season. And normally, Aquarius is associated with the future, with innovation, technology, systems. It's all very intellectual.
Right, it's the visionary.
It is. But the shadow side of Aquarius, which the source really highlights, is detachment. It's when we build a structure, a career, a relationship contract, a persona that functions perfectly on paper but has absolutely no blood running through it.
A system without a soul.
A system without a soul.
And this is where the StoryScope, it illustrates the point so vividly. We meet Marilyn, our systems ethicist. She's standing in this massive, impressive building called the Hall of Measures. The council chair is speaking, the grammar's perfect, the tone is confident. But Marilyn has this realization that just stops her cold.
She observes that language had not failed, but it had become decorative.
Decorative language. That phrase, it really stuck with me. It's words that take up space, but they don't carry any weight.
Exactly. It's just filler. And the astrological source explains why we're noticing this right now. We have these specific planetary transits, which we'll get into, that are poking holes in these decorative narratives.
So it's not just in our heads.
No. The source says that usually we can smooth over the cracks. We convince ourselves, oh, I'm happy in this role, or this strategy is going to work. But this week, the source says the glitch is just too loud to ignore.
The text mentions that polished narratives cracked under the smallest pressure. Now, for the listener who might be thinking, great, my life is about to fall apart, is this a bad thing?
Well, it feels destabilizing in the moment, for sure. But the source frames this as pressure looking for release. If you are feeling that hollow feeling, or if you're noticing that glitch, that's actually data.
It's a signal.
It is a vital signal. Marilyn, in the story, she notes that change doesn't usually arrive as a catastrophe first. It arrives as discomfort. And we tend to dismiss those nagging thoughts as just noise.
Yeah.
Transitional noise, she calls it.
Yeah.
But this week, the sources are telling us, do not ignore the noise. The noise is the truth trying to get in.
And there's a massive reason why the truth is pushing so hard this specific week. When I saw this in the notes, I had to double check the timeline because this isn't just a bad week at the office kind of transit. This is generational.
It is the main event of the year and, arguably the decade.
Yeah.
We are talking about Neptune entering Aries.
Okay, let's slow this down and really unpack this because for those of us who don't track planetary movements, Neptune is just the blue one, far away. Why is this such a big deal?
So Neptune is the planet that governs dreams, illusions, spirituality, the collective subconscious. It moves very, very slowly. It takes about 165 years to circle the zodiac. It's just roughly 14 years in each sign.
Okay.
And since 2011, it has been in Pisces.
And Pisces is a water sign, right?
Correct. Pisces is actually Neptune's home sign. So for the last 14 years, we've been swimming in this very watery, foggy, kind of boundaryless energy. Think about the rise of the metaverse, the streaming era, the blurring of truth and fiction. The way we just sort of drift through content. That is pure Neptune in Pisces.
Okay, so that's the water. But on Monday, January 26th, it moves into Aries.
And Aries is the complete opposite. It's fire. It is the first sign of the zodiac. It represents the self, action, war, beginnings.
But we're literally moving from the ocean to the flame.
That is the perfect analogy. And the source material describes this transition as the fog lifting. But here's the nuance. It's not that the sun comes out and everything is suddenly happy and clear. It's that the fog lifts just enough for us to see that we've been drifting in circles.
That sounds sobering.
It is. In the StoryScope, Marilyn goes to this place, the Observatory of Civic Memory. She looks at the archives of her civilization and she realizes that they had mistaken movement for direction.
Mistaken movement for direction. Wow. I feel like that is the tagline for modern life. We're all so busy, but are we actually going anywhere?
That is the specific trap of Neptune in Aries that the source warns us about. When you combine Neptune, which is ideals and dreams, with Aries, which is action and fighting, you get a new archetype.
The Crusader.
The Crusader.
Okay.
Yes. The person who needs a cause. The source warns that as this energy hits on Monday, we might feel this sudden, almost violent urge to just do something. Quit the job, start the revolution, confess the secret, burn the whole thing down.
We mistake excitement for certainty.
That's the exact phrase. So we are all fired up to fight the dragon, but we don't actually have a map of where the dragon even is.
Precisely. The text says clarity lags behind. We're mobilized, but we don't have the strategy yet. We're just running on adrenaline and the shock of the fog lifting.
So how do we handle that? I mean, if the energy is pushing us to act, but we don't have the clarity, what's the move? Do we just sit on our hands?
Not necessarily, but the source offers a really simple but powerful filter to check yourself. It says to ask, mood or mission?
Mood or mission? I like that. How do you tell the difference?
You have to stress test it. Ask yourself, is this desire to blow up my life just a mood? Is it just the Aries heat rising in the moment? Or is it a mission?
And if it was a mood?
If the idea fades after a few hours or after a good night's sleep or after you eat a sandwich, it was a mood. A mission persists. A mission is grounded.
That distinction is so crucial because the source also touches on the danger of zealotry here.
This is the darker side of the transit. Neptune in Aries can mobilize people under a banner very, very quickly. We want to belong to the good fight. The story mentions that in the city, inspiration was abundant, but commitment scarce.
People were ready to riot, but they weren't ready to build.
Yeah. And the astrology source explicitly says it hopes this will be a battle of ideas, not fists.
Right. Because with Aries involved, fists are always an option. The opportunity here is to stop drifting and start choosing. But we have to choose from a place of internal authority, not just because we're swept up in the crowd.
Which brings us to Tuesday. Because if Monday is the fog lifting and us realizing we're angry or restless, Tuesday sounds like the day the match actually gets lit.
It does. We have Mars conjunct Pluto.
Yeah. If Neptune is the background atmosphere changing, Mars conjunct Pluto is a bomb going off in the room.
Let's define terms here for everyone. Conjunct. It sounds so technical.
It just means two planets are in the same place in the sky from our perspective. So their energies are merged, they're holding hands, but in this case, it's not a romantic hand-holding.
Who are the players?
Mars is the planet of individual action, aggression, and severance. It cuts things. Pluto is the planet of power, the underworld, and deep transformation. It digs things up.
So you have the cutter and the excavator working together. That sounds intense.
Yeah. It is. The source keywords for this day are force times power. It is described as one of the most intense days of the entire month, maybe even the year. The text says, fake calm gets unplugged.
And in the StoryScope, this is the scene in the Assembly Square. You have the reactor union, basically the people in charge, and they start losing control. The power index starts going haywire.
It represents a crisis of authority. But for us, on a personal level, this isn't just about politics or some external event. It's about our internal authority. The source warns that on Tuesday, ambition, anger, and the desire to dominate are cranked to 11.
It says we might feel completely justified in being ruthless, like, I have the facts, I'm right, so I'm going to absolutely destroy you in this email.
Exactly. I'm going to win, and I don't care about the casualties. That is the trap. The source poses a soul test for Tuesday. It asks, is this the soul speaking, or is this the unprocessed pain speaking?
That is a hard question to answer in the heat of the moment when your blood is boiling.
It is very hard. But the distinction is vital. Unprocessed pain wants to hurt others to feel relief. It wants to transfer the pain. The soul wants truth, but it doesn't need to destroy anyone to get it.
Marilyn, the systems ethicist, she steps up to the amplifier in the story, basically the microphone, during this chaotic scene. And she says something that I think is the perfect antidote to this whole Mars-Pluto vibe. She says, if you mirror the violence you oppose, you extend it.
And she adds, power does not need louder fists, it needs wiser hands.
So let's make this actionable. If our listener is in a meeting on Tuesday or dealing with the rebellious teenager and they feel that surge of, I need to dominate this situation, what does the source advise?
Pause. The advice is to become a warrior with a conscience. That's the phrase they use. It asks, can you hold the intensity of the situation without being possessed by it? Can you be the one person in the room who doesn't escalate?
The text says, coherence is contagious. If you stay stable, the room stabilizes around you.
It's not about being passive, though. Mars and Pluto demand action. You can't just roll over. But it's about strategic action, not a reactive explosion. Don't be a weapon. Be the stabilizer.
And if we can survive Tuesday without burning every bridge, the source says the weather changes dramatically by Thursday.
It does. The storm breaks. On Thursday, we get a Mercury-Venus conjunction.
The clean reset.
Yes. Mercury governs the mind, communication. Venus governs values, relationships, money. So after the raw power struggle of Tuesday, this is the moment of clarity and flow.
It's interesting. The StoryScope describes this scene where Marilyn meets her colleague Thomas at a cafe. And the setting is important. It overlooks this river of light. It's peaceful. And Thomas says to her, it feels like we remembered how to talk.
And Marilyn corrects him. She says, or we stopped pretending we didn't know what mattered.
That theme again, stopping the pretense. It's just everywhere this week.
It really is. And Thursday is the practical application of that. The source says honest conversations become easier than you'd expect. This isn't about singing Kumbaya or pretending the conflict didn't happen.
No.
It's about looking at the budget or the contract or the relationship dynamic and just saying, okay, the fighting is done. What is the reality? And can we agree on it?
It also explicitly notes that we don't have to do everything alone. Collaboration is favored on Thursday.
Right. It calls it relief born of clarity. It's that feeling when you finally put all the cards on the table. You might not like the hand you have, but at least you aren't hiding anything up your sleeve anymore. The psychological weight just lifts.
So, if I'm planning my week, Tuesday is for holding my ground and breathing through the anger. Thursday is for making the deal.
That's a perfect strategy. Use Thursday to fix what Tuesday might have rattled.
But we aren't crossing the finish line just yet. The week wraps up with one more major aspect on Sunday, the full moon in Leo.
The ego audit.
An audit, that is, not a word people usually associate with parties or full moons.
No, nobody likes an audit. But this one is necessary to understand why we have to look at Leo. Leo is the performer of the zodiac. It's the stage, the spotlight, self-expression, pride.
Okay.
And a full moon just illuminates whatever sign it's in. So a full moon in Leo shines this giant, unforgiving spotlight on the gap between who we are and who we perform as.
This goes right back to that hollow feeling we started with, the decorative language.
Exactly. And the astrology here is technical, but it's fascinating. This moon creates oppositions, which are like cosmic tug-of-wars with several planets. It opposes Mercury, our freedom of speech. It opposes Venus, our financial freedom. It opposes Mars, our freedom of action. And it opposes Pluto, our freedom to protest.
That sounds like a pressure cooker for the ego. Everywhere you turn, you're being checked.
It is. It's asking you a very uncomfortable question. Are you doing this because it brings you joy, which is the high vibration of Leo? Or are you doing it because it gets you applause, which is the shadow side?
In the story, this is the climax. The whole city gathers under the luminant sphere. And there's this character, the famed orator. He's the guy who always knows what to say. He's polished, he's charismatic, he steps up to speak to the crowd, and nothing.
He falters. He chokes. Because his rhetoric is hollow. The unexamined ego cannot stand up to the light of this specific full moon. He has nothing real to say.
And I thought the crowd's reaction was so interesting. Because in a normal story, they might boo him or throw tomatoes or something.
Right, but here they cry without theatrics and then they laugh.
Genuine laughter.
Because the performance is over, the tension of maintaining the mask is gone. The source says this moment is about learning to act from self-respect instead of impulse performance or fantasy.
It's the shedding of the costume.
And that brings us back to the core message of the whole week. I mean, if you look at the arc, it's a complete story. We start with the glitch, that sense that the costume doesn't fit. Neptune lifts the fog so we can actually see the stage. Mars and Pluto force us to confront the power dynamics of the play. Mercury and Venus help us rewrite the script.
And the full moon. We take the costume off entirely.
Marilyn's final log entry in the story just sums this up so beautifully. She writes, "The future did not arrive with spectacle. It arrived with coherence."
Coherence. And that is the magic word for this whole deep dive. We are conditioned to wait for the spectacle. The lottery win, the viral moment, the sudden epiphany, the thunderclap to change our lives. But the source argues that real change is quieter. It's coherence. It's when your inside matches your outside.
It reminds me of the concept of emotional adulthood that was mentioned in the astrology notes.
Yes. This is the ultimate takeaway. The stars this week are demanding emotional adulthood. It sounds boring, but it's actually revolutionary. It's not about being stoic or emotionless. It's about having the courage to check your own motives, to name the truth without needing to create a drama around it, to take responsibility for your own energy.
The text says, we do not need a dramatic reinvention to move forward. We need clarity, integrity, and consistent action.
And that's what Marilyn found in the story. The city wasn't saved in a Marvel movie sense. The buildings didn't magically repair themselves. It wasn't perfected. But she notes that it was aligned enough to continue.
Aligned enough to continue. That feels like a very achievable bar. We don't need perfection. We just need alignment.
It's the only bar that matters. Sustainability over spectacle.
So as we head into this pivot week, we want to leave you with a bit of homework, or maybe just a thought experiment. We've talked a lot about the difference between performance and coherence.
We have.
The source suggests that we often feed what validates us, the likes, the praise, even the conflict, because it makes us feel important, rather than what actually sustains us.
Right. Validation is sugar, sustenance is protein.
So where in your life are you still performing a version of yourself? Maybe you're playing the role of the perfect employee for your boss, or the cool partner, or the dutiful child. And here's the scary question. What would happen, what would literally happen if you just stopped?
If you drop the script.
If you dropped the script and chose coherence instead. It's terrifying. But according to our sources, it's the only way the future actually arrives.
Stop floating, stop performing, and start choosing.
Good luck with the pivot. Thanks for diving deep with us, and we'll see you on the other side.